Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining CNBC. It's great to
be
have
with
you in Abu Dhabi. I want to just kick off by asking you how you see the Abraham Accords impacting the energy sector globally.
Well, I think it brings a level of security that's going to be good for the region and good for the world, frankly. And the conversations that we started yesterday with the energy ministers, I think, are the first step in that process. So we had very good conversations. We were very excited to see each other. I think the collaboration amongst the ministries and amongst the private sector industry is going to increase as we move forward with these conversations.
Are we talking about more energy pipeline deals like we've seen Abu Dhabi making in the past?
Sure. I think that's exactly what you'll see in the future. You know, the Middle East is blessed with all of these resources. So in some respects, their issues are much like the United States. We've solved the supply problem in the United States. Our challenge now is getting the product to market. It's the interconnections of the pipelines, the interconnections of the electricity grid. It's just moving the product around very easily. And that's what we're going to begin to discuss in more detail as we move along with these conversations.
And you believe Israel is going to have a key role in making that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the relationships that have been started with Egypt and Israel are going to grow. I think we're going to see that expand. We could potentially see interconnections with Jordan, other members of the GCC. And as we move forward, I think that brings a level of energy security and, frankly, national security to each one of these countries. So the interest levels are very, very high right now.
When you think about what happens to the United States specifically, obviously you and I have had many conversations over the last year or so about America's energy independence.
Sure.
Obviously the new administration has some very different ideas to the Trump administration when it comes to the future of that sector.
Sure.
Are you worried America's energy independence is going to be put at risk?
Well, it's a good question. I think every change in administration, should there be one, is going to require the American people to evaluate what the new policies are. But I don't know that the American people are going to ever take a step backward from this independence that's been established over the last 3.5 to 4 years.
A lot of the shale producers are very worried about the incoming administration.
The
shale producers are very worried.
Yeah, the shale producers, of course. Yeah, I think they should be, frankly, because there's some in Congress who are going to drive a climate policy that's going to be very aggressive. So there may be some concern on the part of those folks. I know the ESG movement is very strong. The investment money may, become a bit more difficult to get. Those are all policies we're going to have to wait and see, what happens with this new Congress.
I want to ask you about what happens next with regards to demand. Obviously, when we were sitting together in Munich at the beginning of 2019, it was a very different picture.
Absolutely.
Are you worried that demand is not going to pick up in line with growth necessary for the U.S. shale industry?
Not so much for the shale industry. I do think the demand curves are coming back fairly strongly. I'd like to see them come back even stronger. I think that now that we've moved forward with the vaccine, now that it's going to become widely available, it's time for local governments, states in the United States, other governments around the world to begin the process of reopening their economies. And if they do that quickly, which they should, we'll see that demand pick up really quickly, and the shale producers are going to increase production right along with that increase in demand.
One of the things, obviously, that's a big concern out here, obviously, is the price, and that has a very, very direct implications for budgets, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and elsewhere. When you think about a price outlook, what comes to mind? Are we talking in 2021 seeing 60 again?
Yeah, I think you will. I mean, today we're roughly 50 and some change, I think. I have to look at the pricing again this morning, but that's a far cry from negative 37 just a few short months ago. I think you'll continue, though, to see that increase in price, and you'll stabilize it somewhere in the mid-50s to 60s, provided the economies open up. If they don't open up, then I think we're going to be looking at a decline very shortly. Inventories are still a bit high. Mm-hmm.
How worried are you that this part of the world still doesn't have a handle on keeping those supplies safe?
Yeah. Well, I think that's, part of the conversation we're having with the Abraham Accords is to look for alternatives to shipping. So that's why these pipelines are so important. If we can move natural gas more easily throughout the region, shipping becomes less of a concern. If we can move crude more easily, shipping becomes less of a concern. That's why these interconnects are so important, that we can move this product all throughout the region and make this energy available and, frankly, affordable to all in the region. And I think as we think about energy security, it begins to settle down as peace takes hold. And as this economic activity increases, I think we'll start to see some decline in these types of attacks. But, the one thing...
But pipelines are vulnerable.
Pipelines can be vulnerable, but you can also protect them. I do think that, what we will see over time is what we saw this time with this attack in the Saudi Arabia. We didn't see a shock to the marketplace. And again, that is similar to the Apgake attack in the sense that we didn't see a crazy correction in the marketplace. We're starting to see stability, and that's what we want for everyone in the region.
In terms of that stability, final question. Persian Gulf, obviously, a key waterway for goods, services, and certainly for the lifeline of global energy markets.
Sure.
When you think about what happens next with regards, as you say, focusing more on pipelines, are we talking about an interconnected web of pipelines that will essentially mean less traffic through the Persian Gulf?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, at least in this region, we can take that away, and we have other exit points. So, for instance, if we can move natural gas to the coast of Egypt or the coast of Israel, then we're moving it through the Mediterranean rather than going through some of the other choke points that we're all accustomed to. It gives options to shippers that they don't currently have. And when you do that, you increase the security of that product.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining CNBC.
Oh, thanks. Great to be with you.